Welcome to the Speak with People podcast. My name is Jason Raitz. I'll be your host, and this podcast exists to help you improve your communication skills. Whether you communicate one-on-one, to a team, from a stage, or from behind a screen, we know that when we improve our communication skills as leaders, it exponentially changes everything. It improves our relationships, it improves our leadership skills, and it improves our business skills. So let's get ready to dive into this next episode. How do you figure out your communication style? Here's the reality. Each and every one of us listening to this podcast, we all have a different communication style. And if you are not in the know at what your communication style is, and then if you're not in the know of what other leaders' communication styles are, if you have none of that knowledge and you're just trying to communicate, and wondering why nothing is getting through, today's episode is good news for you because I'm going to give you an overview of the different communication styles. And so once you learn the different communication styles, when you approach a coworker, when you approach another leader, when you're in a team meeting, when you're doing a pitch, all of those things are important because now you have some idea of the people that you're going to communicate to. And so as we break down each of these different communication styles, what they mean, what the different approach are, I hope you'll be able to learn and grow in your communication. So whether you're a leader, you're a team leader, you're a sales exec, you're wanting to bring a better version of communication to your team, I'm excited that you're going to unlock that in this episode. Thanks again. Welcome to the Speak with People podcast. My name is Jason Raitz. I will be your host today, and I'm so excited to dive into this. No guest. We're just going, just me, because I want to be able to break down each of these communication styles. And that's one of the things that we do in Speak with People's Leadership Communication Workshop. If you're a team leader listening to this, you're a VP, you are a sales exec, and you need to get your team, you need to just kind of improve and sharpen their communication skills a bit. You own a business. You've got a team of 5, anywhere to 50. And there's just some things off the rails right now. Productivity's down, morale's down, unity seems to be just really a tough go. Sales are starting to sag. Longtime clients just don't seem to be as happy. It could be because of your team's communication skills. And so that's why Speak with People offers our leadership communication workshop. It's anywhere from 3 to 6 hours. We dive into how to recognize as a leader your communication deficiencies, because all of us have them. Then we work on a plan to improve those deficiencies. Then we look at the healthy communication behaviors that we need to be living out every single day in our leadership. And then we create an improvement plan based on that. We laugh, we have fun, but it's super challenging. The dialogue is incredible. So go to our website, speakofpeople.com/training, get more information about that. But during the training, we specifically look at this section because for team members, it's really important. Now, you may work at a company who has had you go through Strength Finders or the DISC, or Working Geniuses, or Enneagram, or Myers-Briggs, whatever it is. There's a million personality tests. This one specifically, we're going to try to pinpoint how you communicate the best, how communication just flows out of you. Because for each of us, it's different. And so we got to celebrate those differences. And once we know ours, and it's not just 100% of one style, you have a little bit of everyone. Once you could figure that out, your communication really will grow. And what will really happen is your leadership influence will explode, because that's what happens when you improve your communication skills. Your influence exponentially grows. And that's what we want, right? Dr. John Maxwell is famously quoted as saying, leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. So many things go into that, but at the end of the day, it's influence. Now, let me ask you a question. How do you grow your influence? Well, you do that by becoming an exceptional communicator, because the healthier, the more effective your communication is, your influence will blossom. It will grow. It will expand. And before you know it, you'll be leading more projects, more people will report to you, and it will follow you wherever you go, whether it's in your neighborhood, whether it's in your workplace, whether it's at the gym, your influence will grow. So let's talk about the different communication styles. I like to go with 4 basic ones. You Google this, there's going to be a million of them. Some have animals attached to them, which is really fun. Some have colors attached to them. I just went kind of the straight thing. We just looking at 4 primary styles: personal, functional, intuitive, and analytical. Personal, functional, intuitive, and analytical. Let's jump right in. The first one, a personal communication style. All right. This is characterized by a focus on building relationships and connecting with other people at an emotional level. These are the people who like when they receive a text message from somebody, a text message from somebody who they haven't heard from for a while, and they like a little bit of banter. Oh, I haven't heard from you for a while. How about a how are you? It's been a long time. That's a personal communication style. You're connecting on an emotional level. You tend to be empathetic. You're warm. You're nurturing. You prioritize feelings and well being. Us personal, I'm a high personal. If you've ever done the disc, I'm a high I, which is an influencer. Influencers probably our personal communication style. We feel the feelings in the room. I led a training a couple weeks ago in New Jersey, and right away I picked up on some of the conflict that's happening in the room. I mean, this is my superpower. It's just absolutely amazing. So the strengths of the personal, you're going to build great relationships. Your personal communicators excel. You create strong, trusting relationships. You have a warmth. You have an approachability that makes others feel valued and understood. You're constantly asking yourself, did I ask that person's opinion? Is everybody involved? Personal communication styles, you care about stepping on people's feelings, and so you make sure empathy is a great part of this. This is a style for great understanding and responding to the emotional needs of others. uh, you make it effective, and this the empathy that you have in this personal style, when you do conflict stuff or you do customer service stuff, it really helps you bring things into fruition because of that. Uh, you use active listening a lot. You engage in active listening. You show genuine interest in others. You show genuine interest in their concerns and their feelings. You care about their stories. You ask those deep kind of questions. You do balance emotions with fact. It's not that facts and data and all that stuff's not important, but when you have that emotional connection, you got to make sure you're also bringing in that the facts and the logic, because it really brings clarity into effectiveness. Now, here's the thing that you got to do, especially if you're a personal communication style. You've got to set some boundaries, because you can become overwhelmingly overwhelmed by other people's emotions. And you got to set clear. This happened to me for years. Empathy is high on my list. And so I would feel their emotions. I would sense their emotions. I would step inside of their emotions, and I would take that around with me. It was just like piled on my shoulders. And so I had to set up some boundaries in order to be able to do this. So that's a personal communication style. Anybody else out there who has the personal communication style? Yeah, I bet there are a few. Let's move on to the next. All right, the second one. The second one now, functional communication style. Functional. You are organized, you're detail oriented, you're process driven. You are leaders. You have kind of a methodical approach in your planning. You love to excel in your planning. You love to execute things well. You like to ensure that the steps are followed. This brings a lot of strength, especially to your team, because functional communicators are great at organizing all the information, the processes. You ensure that nothing is overlooked. And this makes you super reliable on a team, like very efficient in managing projects. You want to know like how everything is going to work, how is everything's going to happen, and the team looks to you because you value clarity. You provide clear, structured communication that leaves little room for misunderstanding, and you make this excellent in the roles that are required for details. That's why everybody looks to you. If you want to really optimize your communication gift. You got to be open to flexibility. Here's the knock, right? Here's the knock. All your functionality, all your processes, sometimes you come across very rigid and you can't think outside of the box, where the first style is, I didn't even know there was a box. Like, where was this box? The second style is, here are the lines. Here is the process. And you come across sometimes too rigid. Like, you're the dream killer of the team. Like, you just want to throw that stuff away. You also, with the team, you got to avoid overloading them with details, because it could just overwhelm them. And so focus on what is most relevant to the team. And then you've got to push yourself to engage emotionally. If the personal has to like back up a little bit from the emotions, you actually have to take a step forward for the emotions, because sometimes it's going to seem like you don't want to connect with people at all. And that's not true. It's not the case, but you're so focused on the details and the process. So make sure you're stepping towards that. All right. So how many of us are functional communication styles? Yeah, you love that. Okay, let's go now with the next one. Intuitive communication style. Intuitive communication style is characterized by a focus on the big picture, and a preference for ideas over details. People with this style tend to think creatively, often looking for innovative solutions and connecting seemingly unrelated concepts. Oh man, you are big picture. You're trying to take this big idea and you're trying to make it happen. And everybody else from the last style, the functionals, as soon as you open your mouth and you're casting this big vision, they're already thinking, yeah, but wait a minute, we're going to need to do 17 processes in order to make that happen. And they want to shoot it down. You, though, you just love this big picture thinking. The intuitive communicators excel. You just excel at seeing the broader context and the long-term implication of decisions. You're a visionary. You can inspire others with forward-thinking ideas. You love creativity. This style is great for brainstorming sessions. You are not going to be the one who poo-poos ideas in a brainstorming session. You're going to come up with innovative problem solving. When a problem is laid out, you're like, problem? What problem? Let's find the solution. And so you thrive on the out-of-the-box thinking. Now, here are some ways to enhance this style. Ground ideas in reality. Right? You gotta have some reality with it. Sometimes this communication style is a bit unrealistic. Like, how are we going to get a giant balloon inside of a house? Like, there might be a great reason for it, but we got to be realistic. You got to ensure that big ideas are supported by practical steps and details to make them actionable. You got to communicate clearly. Sometimes big thinking is valuable. Be sure to communicate your ideas in a way that others can follow and understand, especially those who prefer more structured approaches. So bring your big thinkingness, but also bring a little bit of the reality and the details. Then you got to collaborate with detailed-oriented people. You just got to find them in your workplace. You got to find the detail-oriented people. You got to partner up with them. And you got to find the functional person, or the style that we'll talk about next, analytical. And you got to cast your vision to them in a way that's not going to blow their minds and make them shoot it down right away, but then get them to start thinking through how to make it happen and provide all the solutions. Okay, so how many of us are intuitive? We love that big thinking. Okay, let's do the fourth one now. I know your mind's probably swirling. You're trying to figure out each one. The last one is the analytical communication style. Analytical communication style. You are focused on logic and data and facts. You're methodical. You're thorough. You're detail-oriented. Your communication excels. Like, you love critical thinking. You're the kind of person who sits in a meeting and you're hearing all the ideas and you're like, yeah, it just can't happen. Like, we can't do it because the data doesn't support it. It's hard for you to like step outside of that and go, wait a minute. Here's some of your strengths. You are ridiculously detail oriented, right? Like, crazy detail oriented. You're adept at diving deep into the data, deep into the details. You got to ensure accuracy. And so you got to make sure there's precision in your communication. That's a strength. Like, people know that when you talk, it's going to be well thought through. And then you're logical. Oh, you're logical. You approach problems logically. You make decisions based on evidence and clear reasoning rather than just emotions. That could be a strength, but there are some things that you got to make sure you remember to not push people away. The first one is you got to simplify complex information. You could go over people's heads right away, right away, right away, right away, right away. So while detailed analysis is a strength, ensure that complex information is presented in a way other people can understand it. Use summaries or visual aids. Uh, think of ways that you can, I don't want to say dumb it down because it's not dumbing it down. It's just making sure you're simplifying it. Then you gotta balance logic with empathy. You gotta balance logic with empathy. Recognize when to incorporate emotional intelligence and empathy. Emotional intelligence is the key to your leadership. You're going to need both of them. So, especially in situations involving interpersonal communication or team communication dynamics, you're going to need to lean into that. And then, my friend, Mr. or Mrs. or Miss Analytical communication style, you're going to have to collaborate with creative people because you got to make their ideas come alive. You got to bring the genius out of their ideas, and then you got to put the skeleton. You got to put the frame to it, and you got to work alongside of them then you got to work alongside even intuitive communicators to blend the data-driven insults with creative ideas and ensuring a well-rounded approach to problem solving. I mean, this is incredibly important. This is incredibly important. So, which one do you think you are? Personal, super high on feelings, emotions, functional, organized, detailed. Think of the processes. You're intuitive. You love the big picture, but the details kind of get lost. Or analytical. You just love all the data and the facts when the feelings sometimes get out of there. So you got to figure out which style you are. You got to, okay, I'm a personal. All right, I definitely align with the personal. And then you got to figure out what's your primary and what's your secondary. So for me, very much so, I'm a primary. Secondary, I would say that I'm, maybe people who know me would be surprised at this, but I think secondary is intuitive. I love big picture thinking. My third then is probably the functional because I do love processes. I do love making a plan to make things happen. And then there is not much analytical in me at all, at all. And I know that has probably frustrated many team members over the years, but there's just not a whole lot in me. And so I got to figure out, what I got to be able to do with those. So uh, if you email me, jason@speakwithpeople.com. If you've made it through this entire podcast and you email me, jason@speakwithpeople.com, I would love to email you a link to an assessment test that will help nail these down just a little bit more concretely. Because I know in your mind, you're putting them together what you think you are. And you're probably 90% right, 80% right, 85% right. But this test will just kind of nail it down a little bit more. Why did I wait to give you the test at the very end? Because I wanted you to listen to all of it, of course. And if your company ever brings in speakers or trainers, I would love for you to represent and refer me to your company. It would be amazing if you sent my website, speakwithpeople.com or jasonraitz.com, to your sales executive, to the VP over sales. Maybe you work for a wholesaling company and you provide events, send it to them. If you work for, a customer service company, this kind of training is perfect to understand. Be honored if you would refer me to that because it's just important. Okay, so let me just recap. It is incredibly important to understand these styles because especially when you're communicating one-on-one or to a team or even from a stage or a screen, you've got to understand that there's all different types of people in the room. And so especially when I develop presentations, if I'm standing up front, I try to bring in some data, even though data is not my go-to. I want to have stuff that backs up the feeling side of what I say. Then I want to have some processes that go along with it. And then I want to have kind of some big picture. So think about that as you communicate and you can kind of weave those in. As you sit down with somebody and you're trying to put them in the right boat, the right bucket, use these. Okay. All right. She is super feeler, emotional. Okay. I'm going to tap into that communication style. That kind of stuff is important. This literally could expand your career. Some of you probably worked in the same place. You've probably done the same job. You've communicated the same way for 20 years, but you would have a revolution. dare I say revolution in your life and your leadership if you just decide, you know what? I may not communicate perfectly. And so I've got to keep growing and learning. And so I am going to dive into these communication styles. And then as I'm meeting with clients, as I'm meeting with team members, as I'm meeting with employees, as I'm meeting with my boss, now I'm able to communicate just a little bit more. All right. This is a shorter podcast for today. Thank you for hanging in there. I just can't thank you enough for being a part of the Speak with People podcast community. I want to hear from you. Please email me, jason@speakwithpeople.com. Let me know what you think. Let me know what kind of guests would be helpful for you, and look forward to the very next episode. Thanks. Well, thank you for joining us on another episode of the Speak with People podcast. We hope that you were encouraged. We hope that you were inspired and challenged to improve your communication skills. I want to thank you again for being a part of the Speak with People podcast community. Make sure you don't miss out on being a part of the Speak with People Facebook community group. Just head to Facebook, type in Speak with People, scroll down and join our community, because every single day we're encouraging each other, we're helping each other to improve our communication skills. Thanks again, and we'll see you in the next episode.